You wake up, and before your feet touch the floor, you've already carried yesterday into today. The same grievances, the same anxieties, the same version of yourself you were trying to outgrow. That is the costly mistake. You treat each morning as a continuation when it is actually an arrival. You treat waking up as resuming when it is actually beginning. And so you drag a corpse into every new day, the dead weight of who you were, what you failed at, what someone said to you, what went wrong. And you wonder why you feel heavy before you've even stood up. Here is the thesis, and I want you to hold it in your mind like a stone in your palm. Each morning is a rebirth, and most people waste it because they never actually wake up. They just keep living the same day over and over. The Stoic morning reset is not about productivity. It is not about cold showers and journaling apps and green smoothies. It is about something far more radical. It is about dying to who you were yesterday, on purpose, so that today you can become someone new. Self-renewal isn't something that happens to you. It is something you build through a deliberate act of letting go. Seneca understood this with a clarity that most people today still haven't reached. He lived in a time when death was not abstract. It was Tuesday. Plagues, political assassinations, exile, the casual cruelty of emperors who could end your life with a nod. And in that world, he practiced something that sounds almost paradoxical. Each morning, he treated waking up as an unexpected gift. Not in the saccharine way that word gets used now. Not the gratitude journal. Not the affirmations taped to the bathroom mirror. He meant it with the full weight of mortality behind it. When you open your eyes tomorrow, you are not owed that. The fact that you have another day is not a continuation of your subscription to life. It is a new grant, a fresh allotment. And the question is not what you carry forward from yesterday, but what you do with what you've been given today. But here is what nobody tells you. The reason you feel stuck is not because your life isn't changing. It is because you keep bringing the same person into every new situation. You wake up, and within 60 seconds you are already rehearsing the narrative. I am the one who struggles with this. I am the one who always gets anxious about that. I am the one who messed up that thing last week. I am the one who still hasn't figured this out. You clothe yourself in yesterday's identity before you've even brushed your teeth. And then you walk through the day wearing a costume that no longer fits, wondering why everything feels tight and constricted and wrong. The Stoics had a word for this kind of thinking. They called it living according to a false impression, taking the stories you tell yourself about who you are and treating them as if they were facts about the world. But they are not facts. They are residues. They are emotional residue left over from experiences that are already over. And the morning reset is the practice of washing that residue off before it hardens into another day of the same. Let me paint the picture more concretely. Think about what actually happens in your first conscious moments. You open your eyes, the ceiling, the light, or the absence of light. And then, almost instantly, the machinery starts. Not the machinery of the world, but the machinery of your own mind reaching backward. It reaches for what happened yesterday. It reaches for what might happen today. It reaches for the unfinished argument, the unresolved tension, the task you didn't complete, the thing you're dreading. And in that reaching, it pulls all of that into the present moment like dragging mud across a clean floor. You haven't even gotten out of bed and you've already dirted today with yesterday. Most people call this waking up. The Stoics would call it a surrender. You have surrendered your first waking moments, the most unformed, the most open, the most potential-filled minutes of your day, to the past. You have handed them over without a fight. So here's the practice. And I want to be very concrete, because this is not a platitude. This is a protocol. When you wake up, do not reach for your phone. I know you've heard this before, but I want you to understand why, not just accept it as a rule. Your phone is a portal to every other person's yesterday. It is a pipeline of unfinished business, other people's demands, news that has nothing to do with the person you are trying to become today. When you reach for your phone in the first minutes of consciousness, you are not starting your day. You are entering everyone else's. You are letting the world colonize your mind before you've even had a single thought of your own. The phone is the anti-reset. It is the device that ensures continuity, the same anxieties, the same comparisons, the same reactive patterns, carried forward without interruption. Instead, lie still. Just lie there. For 1 minute, 2 minutes, however long you can stand it. And in that stillness, do something that sounds strange but is profoundly stoic. Practice deliberate amnesia. Yesterday is dead. Not metaphorically. Actually dead. The person who was anxious yesterday is not you. The person who failed at something yesterday is not you. The person who was praised yesterday is not you. The person who was insulted, overlooked, humiliated, celebrated, none of them are you. They are all dead. They all belong to a day that no longer exists. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds dramatic. That sounds like denial. But it is the opposite of denial. Denial is pretending yesterday didn't happen. This is acknowledging that yesterday happened, fully, honestly, and choosing not to let it dictate today. There is a difference between learning from the past and living in it. The Stoic morning reset is the practice of learning without living there. Think about it this way. If you went to sleep last night and woke up with no memory of who you were, no memory of your failures, your grudges, your embarrassments, your labels, how would you approach this day? You would approach it with curiosity. You would approach it with openness. You would approach it with a kind of clean energy that most people haven't felt since childhood. Because children do this naturally. Every morning for a child is a rebirth. They don't carry yesterday's drama into today. They wake up and the world is new. And then slowly, through years of conditioning, we teach them to carry. We teach them that continuity is identity. We teach them that being the same person yesterday and today and tomorrow is what it means to be real. But the Stoics understood something deeper. Identity is not continuity. Identity is choice. Who you are is not who you were. Who you are is what you choose right now, in this moment, with the character you've built and the reason you've been given. This is what Epictetus was really getting at when he talked about what is in our control and what is not. People reduce that teaching to a kind of practical life hack. Don't worry about things you can't control. Fine. But that's the surface. The deeper layer is this. Your past is not in your control. It is done. It is fixed. It cannot be changed. And therefore, it has no legitimate authority over who you choose to be today. The only thing in your control is your character in this moment, your judgment in this moment, your action in this moment. When you carry yesterday's identity into today's decisions, you are giving the uncontrollable power over the controllable. You are letting the dead govern the living. The refrain I want you to internalize is this: yesterday is dead. Today you begin with only your character and your choices. Say it to yourself, not as an affirmation, not as a mantra to repeat mindlessly in the mirror. Say it as a fact, the way you'd say the sky is blue or fire is hot. Yesterday is dead. Today I begin with only my character and my choices. Now let's talk about what this actually looks like in practice, because the gap between understanding a principle and living it is where most people fall. They read something like this. They feel a spark of recognition, and then tomorrow morning they wake up, and within 30 seconds they're back in the same groove. The same phone, the same anxiety, the same narrative. The spark dies not because it wasn't real, but because it had no structure to sustain it. So here's the structure. The Stoic morning reset has 3 movements, not steps, because steps imply a checklist you complete and move past. These are movements, like in music, recurring themes you return to, that deepen each time. The first movement is acknowledgement. Before you do anything, you acknowledge that you are alive. Not in a grateful way, not yet, in a factual way. You are here. You opened your eyes. Your lungs are working. Your heart is beating. The Stoics were not afraid of death. They were intimate with it. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, repeatedly, that he could die at any moment, and this was not morbid. It was clarifying. When you genuinely understand that this day could be your last, you stop wasting it on residue. You stop spending the first hour rehashing what cannot be changed. The acknowledgement of mortality is not about fear. It is about precision. It sharpens you. It cuts through the fog of yesterday and says, you are here, right now, and that is not guaranteed. What are you going to do with this? The second movement is release. This is the deliberate amnesia. This is where you actively, consciously let go of yesterday. Not suppress it. Not repress it. Let it go. The way you set down something heavy you've been carrying. You feel the weight, you acknowledge the weight, and you set it down. The argument you had, set it down. The mistake you made, set it down. The compliment you received. Yes, set that down too, because attachment to yesterday's triumphs is just another form of being trapped. The win that made you feel powerful, set it down. The loss that made you feel small, set it down. All of it. Yesterday's victories and yesterday's defeats are equally irrelevant to who you choose to be today. This is harder than it sounds. Most people have no problem setting down their failures. Well, actually, that's not true. Most people cling to their failures because failure gives them an identity. I am the one who struggles. I am the one who always messes this up. That is an identity, and people will fight to keep their identity, even a painful one, because an identity is a known thing and the unknown is terrifying. But the Stoic morning reset asks you to give up even the painful identities. You are not the one who struggles. You are not the one who failed. Those were things that happened to a person who no longer exists. Today you are someone new, and who you are is determined by what you choose right now. And here is the harder part. You must also set down yesterday's successes. Because success is the sneakiest trap of all. When you succeed, you feel validated. You feel like you figured it out. You feel like you know who you are. And so you carry that success into today expecting the same result, the same feeling, the same validation. But you are not the same person in the same situation. You are a new person in a new day, and if you approach it with yesterday's confidence, you will miss what is actually in front of you. The Stoics warned against this constantly. Seneca, who lived through enormous success and enormous failure, wealth, influence, exile, proximity to power, the constant threat of execution, understood that both success and failure are external. They are not you. They are things that happen near you. And if you let either one define you, you are living according to a false impression. The third movement is intention. After you have acknowledged that you are alive, after you have released yesterday's dead weight, you ask yourself one question, not 10 questions, not a journaling prompt that takes 30 minutes. One question, who will I be today? Not what will I do? Not what is on my schedule. Who will I be? Because the Stoics understood that being precedes doing. Your actions flow from your character, and your character is not fixed. It is chosen, moment by moment, day by day. So you ask, today, will I be patient? Will I be honest? Will I be disciplined? Will I be the person who does not react? Will I be the person who endures? And you make that choice before the world has a chance to make demands on you. You set the intention in the silence, in the stillness, in the clean space of a mind that has not yet been colonized by the day's noise. This is the key. You set the intention before the world arrives. Because once the world arrives, the emails, the conversations, the traffic, the conflicts, the temptations, the frustrations, once all of that floods in, you will not have the space to choose who you are. You will be reactive. You will default. You will become whoever the situation demands. But if you have already chosen, if you have already planted your flag in the clean ground of the morning, then when the flood comes you have something to stand on. The intention you set in stillness becomes the anchor in the storm. And this is what most people miss about the morning. They think the morning is preparation for the day. The morning is not preparation. The morning is the foundation. And a foundation is not something you prepare. It is something you build. Deliberately. With your hands. With your attention. With your will. Now, I want to talk about the cost of not doing this. Because you need to understand what is at stake. Not in abstract terms. In your terms. In the terms of your actual life. When you carry yesterday into today, you don't just carry the events. You carry the emotional charge. You carry the anger you felt when someone cut you off in traffic. You carry the shame you felt when you said something stupid in a meeting. You carry the fear you felt when you thought about money. You carry the resentment you felt toward a person who wronged you. And that emotional charge doesn't dissipate on its own. It accumulates. Day over day, week over week, year over year. It compounds. And what you end up with is not a life. It is a sediment. A thick layer of undigested emotional experience that sits on top of everything and makes the world feel gray and heavy and distant. This is why you still don't feel whole. This is why you still don't feel like you. Not because something is missing from your life, but because too much is present. Too much of what should have been released. Too much of what should have died and stayed dead. You are living in a house full of corpses, old versions of yourself, old reactions, old grievances, and you keep trying to furnish it, decorate it, make it comfortable, when what it actually needs is to be cleared out. The Stoic morning reset is the clearing out. It is the daily practice of opening the windows and letting the stale air out. It is the recognition that you cannot receive what today has to offer if your hands are full of yesterday. Here is what nobody wants to say out loud. You are not trapped by your circumstances. You are trapped by your continuity. You are trapped by the story that you are the same person who has always been anxious, who has always been undisciplined, who has always been the one who reacts instead of responds, who has always been the one who cares too much about what other people think. That story is not your life. That story is your prison. And the prison has no walls except the ones you rebuild every morning when you wake up and decide, without thinking, that you are still the same person. Carl Jung called this kind of pattern identification with a persona, a mask that you put on so many times that you forget it's a mask. You think the mask is your face. You think the anxiety is you. You think the reactivity is you. You think the old patterns are your personality. But they are not. They are adaptations. They are things you learned to do in response to things that happened, and they were useful once, maybe, in a specific situation, and now they are running on autopilot long after the situation has passed. The morning reset is the practice of taking the mask off before it fuses to your skin. The Stoics were radical about this in a way that modern psychology is only beginning to catch up with. They understood that the self is not a fixed object. It is a process. It is a continuous act of becoming. And every morning, you have a choice. You can continue the process that was running yesterday, the same thoughts, the same reactions, the same emotional patterns, or you can interrupt it. You can break the chain. You can say, that was then. This is now. I am not the continuation of yesterday's reaction. I am a new act of will. Now, I want to address something that might be bothering you. You might be thinking, this sounds exhausting. You want me to do this every single morning? You want me to die to myself every day and start over? Isn't that a lot of work? Yes, it is. And that is precisely the point. The Stoics did not promise ease. They promised freedom. And freedom is not the absence of effort. Freedom is the result of effort. The effort of choosing, deliberately, every single day, who you will be. The effort of refusing to let the past automate your present. The effort of waking up and, instead of reaching for your phone, reaching for your own will. But here is the secret. It gets easier. Not because the practice changes, but because you change. The more you practice deliberate amnesia, the more natural it becomes. The more you practice releasing yesterday before it contaminates today, the lighter you feel. The more you practice setting your intention in the silence before the world arrives, the more stable you become when the world does arrive. It is like any discipline. The first time you do it, it feels awkward and forced. The 100th time, it feels like breathing. But only if you do it. And this is where the nightly review comes in. Because the morning reset is only half the cycle. The other half happens the night before. Seneca practiced this. Each evening, he would sit with himself and review the day. Not to punish himself. Not to wallow in regret. To learn. What did I do well today? Where did I react instead of respond? Where did I let someone else's opinion override my own judgment? Where did I carry yesterday into today when I should have let it die? This nightly review is what makes the morning reset possible. Because the morning reset requires you to know what you're carrying. You can't release what you can't see. The nightly review is the act of seeing, of looking honestly at what the day deposited in you, what's stuck, what you're holding that isn't yours to hold. And then, by the act of seeing it, you begin to loosen your grip. You see that the anger you felt was not about the thing that happened, but about an old wound that the thing touched. You see that the anxiety was not about tomorrow, but about a pattern of fear that you've been running for years. You see it. You name it. And in seeing and naming, you begin the process of release. So the cycle is this. Each evening, you review. You see what you're carrying. You learn from it. You let it begin to loosen. And then you sleep. And sleep is the great divider. It is the natural death of the day, the body's own version of letting go. And when you wake, you complete the release. What the nightly review began to loosen, the morning reset finishes cutting. Yesterday is dead. Today you begin with only your character and your choices. This is what Seneca meant when he said that each day should be received as a gift. He wasn't talking about greeting card gratitude. He was talking about the radical act of treating each day as if it were your first, because in a meaningful sense, it is. The person who wakes up today has never lived this day before, has never faced this exact set of circumstances, has never had this exact opportunity to choose. Every other day you've lived is over. Every other version of you is dead. And the only question that matters is, who will you be now? The truth nobody wants to say out loud is that most people are not living. They are repeating. They are not experiencing new days. They are experiencing the same day thousands of times, with minor variations, and calling it a life. The same reactions, the same triggers, the same emotional patterns, the same identity, reinforced every morning by the simple act of not letting it go. They are stuck in a loop, and the loop feels like time passing, but it isn't. It is just the same circle traced over and over. The Stoic morning reset is the way out of the loop. It is the deliberate interruption of the pattern. It is the choice, made every single morning, to be born again. Not in a religious sense, not in a mystical sense. In the most practical, concrete, grounded sense possible. You wake up. You let the old self die. You choose the new self. You act. And here is what happens when you practice this consistently. Slowly, over weeks and months, you begin to feel lighter. Not because your circumstances have changed, not because your problems have disappeared, but because you are no longer dragging the accumulated weight of every previous day into every current one. You are moving through life without sediment. You are encountering each situation as it actually is, not as filtered through years of undigested experience. You start to see things clearly, not because you've gained some special insight, but because you've removed the fog. The fog was never the world. The fog was you. The fog was all those yesterdays piled on top of each other, obscuring the present. And something else happens. You start to respect yourself. Not in the way that word is usually used, not self-esteem, not self-confidence in the modern performative sense. Self-respect in the Stoic sense. The respect that comes from knowing that you are doing the work, that you are not on autopilot, that you are not a passive victim of your own patterns, that every morning you are choosing. And the act of choosing, repeated daily, builds something in you that no external circumstance can give and no external circumstance can take away. It builds character. And character, for the Stoics, was the only thing that was truly yours. Everything else could be taken: your wealth, your status, your health, your relationships, your life. But your character, the sum of your choices, that is yours. That is the one thing that cannot be stolen. It can only be given away. And most people give it away every morning when they let yesterday decide who they are today. So here is where I want to bring you back to the beginning. To that moment when you wake up and before your feet touch the floor, the machinery starts. The reaching backward, the dragging forward, the surrender. It doesn't have to be that way. Tomorrow morning, when you open your eyes, I want you to try something. Don't move. Don't reach for anything. Just lie there and feel what it's like to be alive. Feel the breath. Feel the body. And then, deliberately, consciously, with the full force of your will, let yesterday die. All of it. The triumphs and the failures. The praise and the criticism. The things you're proud of and the things you wish you could undo. Let it all die. Let the person who experienced all of that rest in peace. And then, in the clean silence of a mind that belongs only to this moment, ask yourself, who will I be today? You don't have to answer out loud. You don't have to write it down. You just have to ask. And in the asking, something shifts. Because the question itself is an act of sovereignty. It is the declaration that you are not the continuation of yesterday. You are the beginning of today. You are not the residue. You are the source. Yesterday is dead. Today you begin with only your character and your choices. That is the Stoic morning reset. Not a habit, not a hack, a way of being. A daily practice of dying and being reborn, of letting go and choosing again, of refusing the comfortable tyranny of continuity and insisting, every single morning, on the radical act of beginning. Most people will not do this. Most people will wake up tomorrow and reach for their phone and start the same day they live today. And the day after that. And the day after that. Until the days run out and they realize they only ever lived one day, thousands of times. You don't have to be most people. Wake up. Let go. Choose. Stay disciplined.